Hello everyone and welcome to the Commando cast. I'm Andrew flying solo today. Today we're doing something a little different. We're going to look at what I'm packing. Hey guys, and welcome back to the cast. So doing something a little different today with the announcement earlier this week that Spark of Hope will be releasing July 4th weekend. That puts us really only a couple weeks out. So I don't expect a whole bunch to change in terms of deck development or meta in that time. So what I thought would be kind of neat is if we just looked at what I'm playing currently and what I'll be playing pretty much until the new release. So this is my deck box that I take to tournaments. It's an Ultimate Guard box. I don't remember what size it is. This is not a Ultimate Guard product review, so I don't really want to go into that, but it's nice. I can keep my 3 decks on the one side. I have enough room for dice on the other side, depending on how many dice are in the deck. Sometimes I can only fit 2, and then just my tokens in the middle. But yeah, so this is generally what I carry around to all of my tournaments, usually a competitive deck and then a couple fun decks. So let's go ahead and look at what I have in here right now. So I have a Tarkin Phasma deck. I have a Padme Saw deck, just a fun deck that I like to play. And then I have my Phasma Trooper Advanced Training deck. So let's set 2 of those aside, and we'll just go through the Tarkin Phasma deck, which is my competitive deck right now. So it's a conversion basically from the Tarkin Snoke deck, which is now dead with the Snoke nerf. So this Tarkin and Phasma on the Salt Flats, they're both leaders, so obviously both of them can flip. Now do you remember Phasma is a leader trooper? And then just starting with the upgrade suite, so I have 2 Mega Blaster Trooper, or sorry, upgrade, by upgrade suite I mean dice suite, right? So upgrade support suite. I have 2 Megas, 2 Fickles, Sniper Team. I really love the Sniper Team, I really do. 2 Riot Shields, 2 Bubble Shields, and then because it has redeploy, I actually like this gun a lot. So the A300 Blaster, it has 2 black sides and a modified side. With this deck, there's plenty of guns flying around the table. And then, of course, I have the Conscript Squad. I don't think that will surprise anybody with both of them being leaders. It comes in and it's pretty much on all game as a fast, effective upgrade. As far as the event suite goes, I've got 2 Doubts. I run 2 Battle Fatigues, the indirect from the Tarkin ability, of course, turn those on. I have 2 Routes, 2 Logistics for just getting extra money, 2 Sinister Peace, pretty effective card, Measure for Measure. Obviously, most of my guys here, with the exception of the Fickles, are Troopers. Best Defense, just damage soaking, and then I have 2 Probes just for what Probe does. I have been thinking about swapping out Probe for fresh supplies just to help me get Megas in. Later in the game, this deck obviously doesn't move very fast, but early it kind of does because you roll in, you Tarkin, and then you kind of resolve what you have and you shoot. So I think fresh supplies would be a good one early game, so I'll have to play around with that in the Probe slot. So anyway, that's my Tarkin Phasma deck. I'd have to say it's my most competitive deck right now, but we'll have to run it at a couple more tournaments and see how it pans out. So I know this one's a little odd for the suite. Some people in Tarkin Snoke, we used to run the LS hand cannon, right, which used up 2 upgrade slots, great upgrade. But the redeploy on this one's really been growing on me, so I started to include it just for a trial. I do like the redeploy on it. All right, let's get this guy back tacked up. Okay, oh, and I do want to point out with all my decks, many of you will notice that I have them all color-coded. That's just for my OCD-ness. Obviously, if I'm going to a high-level tournament, I swap out the character in the battlefield as per tournament regulations and give them a different colored sleeve. Also, when, of course, you'll notice that some of these guys, these are the dragon sleeves. You'll notice you can look in the back, and some of the colors you can actually see through, the black you cannot. So whenever I go to tournament, I try to use the black sleeves only, just so there's none of those gotchas from anybody who decides they kind of want to be a jerk at a tournament. All right, so next let's go through my Phasma deck. So this one's pretty straightforward. Phasma, First Order Stormtrooper. My Spot Gloss Advanced Training that Mike thankfully grabbed me at the last GQ. And then Military Camp, I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. I do like this version over the Sentinel version. I think the Sentinel version probably is, actually there's no probably about it. The Sentinel version's better, but this really fits my playstyle more, and I really just like this deck. All right, so we've got Conscript Squad. I think that one's self-explanatory. The Quicksilver Baton on Phasma's Leaders, pretty great. This is not cocky, so these are proxies because I only have, between Amy and I sharing cards, obviously we don't have, 15 copies of Riot Shield, so that's a proxy for Riot Shield. Proxy for Sniper Team. Proxy for Measure, now into the Event Suite. And then proxy for Route, because we only own 2 routes amongst we only own 2 routes amongst the 2 of us. Scorched Earth, so this one does a lot of work. This deck's super fast. It's won me several games against Palpatine, right? Just wait for him to roll out, and then you drop 8 on him or something like that he doesn't see coming. So in this deck, I play Electromagnetic Pulse over Doubt. You could really go either way on this, and I've kind of gone back and forth on them. I just like, right now with Aphra being a new thing since the nerf, we're seeing a lot more droids even than before, and vehicles, vehicles are still a thing. Sinister Piece, 2 of them. 2 of the Alt-Art Probes. So Pulverize. Pulverize is quite the key in this deck. You can get 5 dice on the table without much effort, and then, they're all worth the damage. So Pulverize can do some quick work to blow down a character. So Force Compliance. This one's probably not a common choice, but I really like it in this deck with Advanced Training. So turn an opponent's die to any side, then turn one of your dice to a side showing the same symbol as that die. So it's a soft mitigation. You can blank them and then turn one of your trooper die to a blank, which doesn't really hurt you because it's equal to 1 effective melee as long as Phasma's alive. Okay, so 2 Force Compliance. I have 2 Fresh Supplies. That one's a no-brainer because this moves so fast. Browbeat I have because it's really just a mini, kind of like a dumbed down route, wherever my route is, somewhere around here. It's one of the proxy cards, but right there. So just a dumbed down route, and then 2 Alt-Art Vest Defenses. Okay, so that's the Phasma deck that I have right now. I'm looking forward to some cards from the next set already. That ATRT looks pretty good in this deck. I think that's a certain include. So we'll have to see if I swap out the Sniper Team or what we do for it. But there's plenty more cards to be spoiled, I'm sure. So we'll see where we're at in a couple weeks. All right, let's just pick this guy up here. Then we can go on to the Padme Saw deck. And again, just a reminder, these proxies are not, I don't play with the proxies. I swap cards out before I play them. It's just a reminder to me so that I can swap the cards in and out. Because most of the cards in this deck, as you can imagine, are shared with that Tarkin Snoke deck. All right, last one is Padme Saw. And again, I've got a proxy for Salt Flats because we only own so many Salt Flats battlefields. But so Padme Saw on the Salt Flats. Now, this deck is not super amazing. I haven't actually been all that impressed with the deck. I just like it. It's a lot of fun, especially when you're, just playing casual, throwing back a beer or so. So that's what I've been running. So I've got 2 Senate Chambers in there. I know it's unique, but Senate Chamber is really good. Padme's Royal Starship really is in here more for just flavor. I don't think I've played very many games with this deck where I'm actually able to get it on the table. It's just too expensive because you're too busy resolving your dice, right? If you're resolving one of these big dice for a money, you're probably not doing very well. LS1 Hand Cannon, this one serves really well in that deck because it's just a really good upgrade and you don't have a ton of upgrades that you're putting into play. So I have a proxy and then of course a Suppressive Fire, so 2 copies of Suppressive Fire. 2 Riot Shields, again they're only worth 2 because these guys aren't troopers, but it'll get the job done to protect them a little bit. I am playing 2 copies of Target Acquired. Not overly impressed with that one, but it's put a guy down or 2. 2 copies of Electroshock. This one tends to be on all game. Very few people go for Saw first, which is the obvious play. You want to kill Padme. I have 2 Hasty Exits. Sometimes you forget about this card, but it's, as long as you can Salt Flats and then give it away, that's pretty good. Target Intel. So I do play this one over the 1-cost support that lets you resolve. This one just tends to be, you don't have to play the setup. You can just kind of surprise. I just like the surprise factor of being able to put someone down when they weren't thinking about it, right? 2 copies of Field Medic. 2 copies of First Aid. First Aid does work pretty well because, again, most people are going for Padme first. Right, then I have 1 copy of Aggressive Negotiations, 1 copy of Flee the Scene, 2 scruffy looking Nerf herders, 2 impulsives, which is a no-brainer, and then 2 easy pickings, again a no-brainer for this deck. So again, this deck hasn't been super effective. It is a lot of fun just because you can roll in and hit for 12 and you can flip, and it's relatively consistent. But again, you'll get beat down against most of the tier 1 decks out there right now. All right, so let's pick this up. So those are the 3 that I'm packing in my casual kind of take with me everywhere deck. I do, however, always, or not always, but I will often be seen packing a couple extra decks with me. I carry them in these little guys. So I was lucky and they rolled out new phones at work a couple years ago, and everybody got these boxes, so they were just in the recycle bins like crazy. And when I open it up, you'll see how great it is. Fits a deck just perfect. So I wanted to show you guys this deck. This deck I've had put together and sleeved up since the very beginning of the meta. I actually kind of put it together on a plane when we were on vacation, came back and made it. But it didn't perform very as well as I thought it was going to in the beginning. I thought it was going to kind of be the new meta, but it just didn't quite work out the way that I thought it would. So here's the pairing. It's single messenger, single Aphra, single Watt, right? So that's just to make it clear, that's 1 die a piece. Okay, and then I'm playing double down. And then the battlefield I'm on is Petraki Arena. Deal 1 indirect damage to yourself to deal 1 unblockable to a character. Right? This one obviously pairs with 000 really well to kind of just put the pain on. Okay? So let's slide those over. Now do remember we have double down, which allows us to play 3 copies of 2 cards in our deck. So let's just go through what we have. So, all right, so there's Bubble Shield. That's not Press Advantage, that's a proxy Bubble Shield. Okay, so we'll just do that. So it's 2 Bubble Shields, that's a no-brainer in this deck. I have 2 BT1s, also a no-brainer. One of my 3-ofs is Assassin Droid. Now I have 2 proxies of it because Amy is playing it in her Watto Talzin deck. I was able to trade for a 3rd, but obviously I think it's pretty reasonable to understand why we don't own 5 Assassin Droids considering it's a starter. So Assassin Droid is one of my 3-ofs. I also went with 000 as my 3-of because 000 is exceedingly crucial to just the indirect pings in the Aphra deck. Okay, and then I've got Stap in here somewhere. It's got out of order. And I'm playing with 2 tech teams, which are pretty obvious on why we do that, just with all the supports we have, and there's my 2 Stap droids. All right, so that doesn't leave a whole lot of room left, right? Because you're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 14 cards just right here. So I've got automated defense, finding droids to spots, no problem. 2 motives, 2 battle fatigues. It's not uncommon to have damage on everybody, so that one's just usually on by about the 2nd turn. 2 doubts, 2 by any means, aggressive removal. Forsaken, obviously there. Act of Cruelty, I love the surprise factor on that one. And then Crash Landing is another Aphra auto include. You will notice the absence of Relentless Pursuit in this deck. So I know Relentless Pursuit's a 0 and it can allow for a surprise kill, but Act of Cruelty also allows for surprise kills and actually ends up doing more net value than the Relentless Pursuit, even at the 1 cost. So that's what I have. Again, like I said, this deck hasn't been performing as well as I expected it to, but now that it's post-nerf, I actually haven't played this in a tournament post-nerf, so I'll probably be doing that here shortly and see how it performs. I mean, this guy we're starting to really realize is just an all-star with that 1 in damage, and then 3 copies of 000 just to make sure we get him, I think is pretty darn good. So, all right, let's stack this guy up, and then I'll show the very last deck that I have. And then since we're doing okay on time, we'll actually go in and we'll see Amy's decks. But yeah, I like these little boxes. So by the way, it's a Samsung phone case. So if you have a Samsung phone, or if I should say phone box. So if you have a Samsung phone, you may have already thrown it away, but if you're getting a new one, they're pretty good for it. All right, and then you guys probably know that I just love, Rogue One was my favorite movie. Favorite of the recent movies, of course. Jen, Cassian, Occupied City. I just really like this deck. I just like the auto pairing. They do really well as a mill kill deck, just to put the pressure on, and this deck's actually in a really good spot right now. So I am playing not very many upgrades, but I'm playing Jin's Blaster because it's really just amazing. Resistance Ring, so we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm playing 2 copies of Bubble Shield, 2 copies of Scrap Heap. Scrap Heap is actually your hard mulligan. That's what I hard mulligan before more than anything else. 2 copies of Suppressive Fire. Again, some more Proxy Riot Shields. So I am playing 2 answers. I'll actually put the no answers right here because we can talk about those as a team. First Aid together. A lot of people go for Jin first because they hate her ability. I think the right play is actually going for Cassian first, but I can see the argument either way. So I've included First Aid because so many people go for her first. I, of course, have Field Medic, which can heal anybody. I have 2 copies of Entangle, so usually you only get 1 off because Cassian will go down pretty quick and you have to spot him. But it's such a good card just to have in from a removal standpoint. I then have 2 copies of Clandestine Operation. That card is just a killer. If you can get even 2 or 3, well, if you get 3, it's amazing. If you can get even 2 discards together, to discard 2, mill 2, and then discard another, mill another 2 on top of that. Eat 2 copies of Easy Pickings. 2 copies of Way of the Light. That could go either way. I tend to like that card, especially because it's such a villain-heavy meta all the time. You could do Leverage if you wanted to in there, although it's a little. There's still the same number of restrictions. Sure Shot really works well with Jin Cassian. So resolve one of your dice showing range against a character, then remove one of that character's character upgrade dice. Right? Even when you're playing the mill version of this, it's not uncommon just to shoot and blast down somebody. And again, it's just additional removal. And then Scruffy Looking Nerf Herd again. If you're playing Hero Yellow, I think you're crazy not to play this, but especially in a mill deck, it's something that you really want to do. All right, so let's clean up this real quick, and I'll leave out these 2 guys, and we'll talk about them. So with the recent nerf on No Answer, I don't know that Jin Cassian plays No Answer. The reason is, so No Answer now, so discard a random card from an opponent's hand. Then, if that opponent has no cards in hand, mill 3 from their deck. So you have to only have, your opponent has to only have 1 card in hand, which is very difficult to achieve, especially for Jin Cassian, because they've got, if you look at these guys, they've got the 1s, and that's what they have, and you have to find some combinations of 1s. So unless your opponent makes a play mistake, it's exceedingly difficult to force them to get into that situation. So No Answer, I think, becomes far less useful in Jin Cassian. In fact, I don't think I'm going to play it anymore. And to that end, Resistance Ring becomes, you're really only playing Resistance Ring to recur No Answer, right? So these 2 cards, I think, need to get swapped out. It's going to sound crazy, but I think I'm actually considering playing Conscript Squad in here just because it puts extra. So both of these guys are leaders, right? Character leader, character leader. Putting Conscript Squad in here and letting it roll in with them and being on the table the whole time just provides extra pressure that maybe your opponent will remove it. If they're spending removal, they're furthering your mill win condition. Or maybe they leave it out there and it's a +2, right? And then you just blast somebody down. So I am considering trying out the Conscript Squad and then maybe just another removal card. I'd like to try and get some 0-cost stuff in here because it's a little expensive of a deck. Because if you don't get Scrap Heap down, you can find yourself in trouble real quick. So we'll play around with that some more and see what we get in the next set. All right, so we checked out what Andrew was packing. So now let's look at what's in Amy's box. So this is her box. So she only has 2 decks in here right now. So I built both these decks for her. The one deck we went, so let's go into this. This is a post-nerf deck. So we have Ayla, Mace, Obi-Wan's Hut, and then we're playing Lightsaber Mastery, because remember, she's 9-12 now, so 12, 28, 30. And then the cards we went with under Lightsaber Mastery are Fatal Blow and Deflecting Slash. So this one's just for removal. This one works really well just for kind of that end game kill because Mace is pulling out your upgrades. Okay, so let's do that. And then let's just go through the upgrades. So I have Ezra's Lightsaber. I love, love, love this card. Just a 2 cost redeploy, 3 effective damage sides. It just does its job. Luke's lightning rod is not a weapon, but it's an upgrade equipment, which doesn't matter to Mace. He doesn't care as long as it's an upgrade. So we've got 50% damage sides on there. 2 copies of Treasured Lightsaber. That one's, I think, pretty self-explanatory, right? It gives you damage sides, gives you the special side. I really like dropping it, drawing the card, rolling in, hoping for the special just to put pressure on. All right, then playing 2 copies of Republic Jedi Armor. This card's really great with the +1 health and tons of shields. It only has 1 focus side, which is kind of a drawback. But when it comes in, you also give a shield. So if you can mace it out, it can put you pretty far ahead. No damage sides though. I'm playing the Aquata Breather, so with Mace that at least turns into a shield at the very least, and there's no shortage of indirect flying around these days, so that card can actually do quite a bit of work. As far as the big guns, if you want to call it that, we have a Raised Lightsaber, a Dagger of Mortis, and then Mace Windu's Lightsaber. So this one has not been super amazing, fantastic, but when it's out there and start hitting the special, you can really make your opponent start to make some suboptimal choices trying to get around it. All right, and then I'm playing 2 copies of Hone Skills. These cards are exceedingly valuable in this deck because what's going to happen is you're going to start loading up on your Jedi Armors and your Aquata Breathers, and all of a sudden you don't have any spots left on your guys. And you're going to have to get at least 1, if not 2 weapons out if you're going to hope to even be able to make a dent in your opponent over the long run. Okay, 2 Binds All Things. I don't think I need to explain that one. 2 Pacifies, 2 Conflicted. Both these guys have 50% damage sides, so Conflicted is great, even if you only get the shields. Hidden Motive, Disciplined Mind, spot a Jedi to remove non-Jedi die. 2 Way of the Lights, 2 Unbreakables. So I do want to speak about Unbreakable. I haven't been overall impressed with it. Even though we generate a lot of shields in this deck, sometimes you can still get screwed, and it just feels bad. So I'm thinking that maybe that would be best just to replace with like a Mislead. Then an Alt-Art Forces with me. And then to top it all off, just 1 single copy of Beguile. I was running the Mace Windu version of Beguile just for flavor, but Beguile's just better. Like the Mace Windu card, I don't even, Channel the Force is its name. It's just not as optimal, so. All right, that's the Blue Hero deck that Amy's been playing. She's getting quite frustrated with the fact that Blue Hero is just not making it in this meta. I've tried to make this deck good. I honestly think it's about as good as it can be with maybe 1 or 2 card swaps, and it's still not cutting it. So, but we put that into the ground. Everybody knows Blue Hero needs some help. So let's see how it goes. All right, so very last deck we're gonna do today is Amy's big one that she's been playing with, which is Watto, Wat, Talzin on the Salt Flats. So this, I think, is an uncommon choice with the Salt Flats. Giving your opponent the Salt Flats is not optimal because they can blank stuff. However, if you get this first turn, you can flip Wat to his 2 focus. And from a first turn standpoint, that is gigantic, right? So we know we're not going to outrace anybody unless it's a mirror. We're not outracing anybody. This is really just straight up a first turn play. The 2 shields that you give them and the fact that they can blank a die for the rest of the game, I still think is worth that 2 focus guaranteed on Wat at the beginning of the game. Because that gives you 1, 2, 3 automatic focuses even on your first turn, okay? And then just to be clear, so it's double die Watto, single die Wat, single die Talzin. So we have committed completely to the odds package on this with the exception of 2 cards, or I should say 1 card, 2 copies of it. So we play Well Connected. This card actually needs to get swapped out. The reason is, and probably I'd do it for like a Hidden Motive or something like that, but spot a yellow character to gain 1 resource. If Watto's alive, you don't always really need this. The reason we had put it in originally was a lot of times you could get down that first turn fist and then roll it in and hit the pay side and then you're out. So having that Well Connected, especially we would actually mulligan for that Well Connected, it would do work. However, we've been seeing a lot of problems with the spot on that. So anyway, just keep that in mind that that's our 1 even, or our 2 even cards. So we're at 28 odds. So no surprise here, we're playing the Scoundrel package. So we've got Fickles, Entourages, and then the Hired Muscle for your 6 Scoundrel cards. Then the 2 Assassin Droids that I had spoken about. The Assassin Droid with Wat Tambor is beyond amazing. 2 copies of Vader's Fists. That's the big bad guy. And then I have 1 copy of Slave 1, 1 copy of the Hover Tank. As far as the event suite goes, so we have 2 copies of At Odds. This is really just for the mill matchup. This card go either way on. Witch Magic is a must include in this. Mislead, 2 copies. Vandalize. Vandalize does a lot of work in this deck. Undermine. So I really like Undermine as a card. Remove up to 2 dice showing a blank. It's really effective against Phasma Troopers, or just Phasma in general. 2 Alter Art Flanks. Again, because you have so many supports, a lot of times you'll be in round 2, round 3, maybe even round 4, and you'll notice that you have a whole bunch of dice in the pool and you haven't even rolled anybody in yet. So flank seems to be a pretty good choice for this deck. Then have 2 copies of Forces with Me, just for that range and indirect removal. Then I have 1 copy of Best Defense. This does not seem optimal because obviously what you're going to be trying to do is keep Watt alive, and you know that Watt's going to be their first target. That said, there have been incidences when you can still pound the 3 to him, maybe overkill him, and take out 2 pretty important dice. So Best Defense is certainly in there, just 1 copy. And then 1 copy of Active Cruelty. You're generating quite a bit of indirect and or ping damage, and if you're smart about it, so you're getting indirect here, there's some indirect here, and then it's targeted ping, but if you kind of spread it around, make sure everybody has it, you can basically have that turned on. So it's worth 3 usually, and a discard. So just one copy of it though. So yeah, that's Amy's deck. I don't see this changing. Again, I don't see any of the decks that we talked about today changing before the next couple of weeks. It's just, it kind of is what it is at this point, and we'll just probably play it out. Maybe even build some more fun decks, but if we go anything, I don't think there's going to be anything meta shaking within the next couple of weeks. So, all right, so that's it for today. Again, we've gone through plenty of decks, all the decks we have put together. So yeah, this was something a little different, but hey, if you liked it, let me know in the comments, give me the feedback. If you like what we're doing here at Dice Commando, please give us the like, give us a subscribe, and nothing else, so go Commando.